What if I told you that Iran's military generals, men who have spent their entire careers preparing to fight the United States, are not losing sleep over aircraft carriers? Not over F-35s, not even over nuclear submarines. There is one specific weapon system, one specific capability, that when senior Iranian defense officials first fully understood what it could do, multiple sources inside the region reported that the meeting went completely silent. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you will understand something about the real balance of power in the Middle East that most people, including most journalists, will never fully grasp. And the answer is going to surprise you. Most people think they already know the answer to this question. Ask anyone on the street, and they'll say the same things. Aircraft carriers, F-22 Raptors, Tomahawk missiles, maybe a nuclear bomb. And those answers make sense on the surface. The United States operates 11 nuclear-powered aircraft carriers. Iran operates 0. The U.S. Air Force fields over 180 fifth-generation stealth fighters. Iran's most advanced jet is a modified version of the F-14, a plane that was designed in the 1970s and that America itself retired in 2006. The gap in conventional military power is so enormous that it almost seems pointless to compare them. But here's what most people completely miss. Iran doesn't need to match the United States weapon for weapon. That was never the strategy. Iranian military doctrine, studied extensively by the Pentagon, is built around one core idea: make any U.S. attack so costly, so painful, so unpredictable that the political will to continue collapses before the military outcome is decided. They've studied Vietnam. They've studied Iraq. They know exactly how America loses wars. So the question isn't which U.S. weapon could destroy Iran fastest. The real question is, which U.S. capability completely destroys Iran's entire strategy before it even begins? And that is a very different question with a very different answer. But wait, because what I'm about to tell you next is the part that nobody is talking about. To understand what Iran fears most, you first have to understand what Iran built to protect itself. Because Iran didn't spend 40 years doing nothing. To start, Iran built one of the most extensive underground military networks in human history. Not underground bunkers in the basic sense. We're talking about something that took decades and billions of dollars to construct. A network of tunnels, hardened facilities, and buried command centers that stretch for hundreds of miles beneath the Iranian landscape. The Fordo nuclear facility, the one that became the center of every diplomatic crisis for the last 15 years, is buried under 260 feet of solid mountain rock. Iranian engineers chose that location specifically because American bombs at the time could not reach it. Iran's ballistic missile program, the one that launched over 180 missiles directly at Israel in April 2024, is operated almost entirely from underground launchers. Mobile, hidden, constantly moving. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps built what they call their missile cities. Vast underground complexes where hundreds of ballistic missiles sit in hardened silos, ready to launch, buried so deep that conventional airstrikes cannot touch them. But this underground strategy alone isn't enough, because Iran also built layered air defenses to protect the approaches to those underground facilities. The Russian-supplied S-300 system, domestically produced Bayvar 373 missiles, Iran's own attempt at an S-400 equivalent, shorter-range systems layered in overlapping coverage zones. And Iran built a massive drone and proxy network. Hezbollah in Lebanon, Houthi forces in Yemen, Shia militia groups across Iraq and Syria. If the U.S. strikes Iran, Iran doesn't just fight back directly, it ignites every single one of those networks simultaneously. The strategy is elegant in its logic. Go underground where bombs can't reach. Shoot down planes that get close. And if anyone attacks anyway, turn the entire Middle East into chaos. This is what Iranian generals spent 40 years building. And here's the part that changes everything. There is one U.S. capability that was specifically, deliberately, and systematically designed to make every single element of that strategy fail at the same time. When a senior defense analyst at the Rand Corporation first mapped out Iran's integrated defense strategy in full, every layer, every redundancy, every backup system, he noted something that stopped him cold. The entire architecture has one assumption built into its foundation. Iran assumes it will know the attack is coming. Every element of Iranian defense doctrine requires warning time. The mobile missile launchers need time to disperse. The air defense networks need time to activate. The proxy forces need time to receive orders. The underground facilities need time to close access points and shift to protected communications. Iran's entire defensive system is built around the idea that there will be a moment, even a brief one, between the decision to strike and the strike itself. Take that assumption away, and the entire structure collapses. This is why what Iran fears most is not the weapon that hits hardest. It's the weapon that arrives without any warning whatsoever. That hits targets Iran didn't even know were identified. That operates in an electromagnetic environment where Iran's communications, radar systems, and command networks have already been silently degraded before the first visible sign of attack. What Iran fears most is the combination of stealth, electronic warfare, and precision that makes their entire 40-year defensive investment obsolete in the first 90 minutes of a conflict. And the United States has spent $100 billion building exactly that combination. Keep watching, because the next part completely changes how you see this. Let's start with the most visible piece of this puzzle, the B-2 Spirit stealth bomber. Most people have seen the photos, the flying wing shape, the black skin, the eerie silence when it passes overhead. But most people completely miss what the B-2 actually means in the context of Iran. The B-2 was designed in the 1980s specifically to penetrate Soviet air defenses, the most advanced air defense network ever built at that point in history. Thousands of radar installations, thousands of surface-to-air missiles, integrated command systems that covered the entire Soviet Union. The B-2 was built to fly through all of that undetected, to reach targets buried deep inside Soviet territory, and to destroy them before a single Soviet radar operator knew it was there. The Soviet Union's air defense network was approximately 40 times more sophisticated than anything Iran operates today. Let that sink in. To start, the B-2 has a radar cross-section of approximately 0.1 square meters. For comparison, a bird in flight registers about 0.01 square meters. The B-2 is slightly larger than a bird on Iranian radar. Iranian radar operators would have less than 60 seconds of warning if they detected it at all. But this alone isn't enough to explain the fear. Here's what makes it different. In March 2024, the United States quietly repositioned at least 2 B-2 Spirit bombers to Diego Garcia, the remote Indian Ocean island that sits approximately 2,500 miles from Iranian territory. No announcement, no press conference. Satellite imagery analysts noticed the deployment and reported it weeks later. Diego Garcia is not a staging area for defensive operations. It is where the United States positions assets when it is preparing for the option of deep penetration strikes against hardened underground targets. On top of that, the B-2 can carry the GBU-57 massive ordnance penetrator, a 30,000-pound bomb, specifically engineered after military planners realized that existing weapons could not reach Fordow. The GBU-57 can penetrate 200 feet of reinforced concrete before detonating. The Fordow facility is buried under 260 feet of mountain rock. The Pentagon asked Boeing to modify the GBU-57 specifically to solve that gap. The upgraded version entered testing in 2022. As one former Air Force targeting officer put it, "We didn't build that bomb for a hypothetical enemy. We built it for one specific building, in one specific mountain, in one specific country." But here's what I haven't told you yet. The B-2 and the GBU-57 are the part of this story that's been reported publicly. Analysts discuss them. Think tanks write about them. Iranian generals know they exist. What truly keeps Iranian military planners awake is the layer underneath that, the electronic warfare and cyber capabilities that would precede any physical strike. You see, modern US military doctrine doesn't begin a major strike campaign with bombs. It begins with silence. Specifically, it begins with what military planners call left-of-launch operations, actions taken before a single missile is fired that degrade, confuse, or destroy an adversary's ability to respond. In practice, this means the following. Iran's air defense radar network relies on communication links between individual radar stations and central command nodes. Sever those links, and each radar station becomes an isolated island. It can detect something, but it cannot coordinate a response. The United States operates the EA-18G Growler, an electronic warfare aircraft capable of jamming radar frequencies across an entire operational theater simultaneously. A single squadron of Growlers can effectively blind a nation-sized air defense network for as long as they remain on station. But this alone isn't enough to explain the full picture. On top of that, U.S. Cyber Command has publicly acknowledged conducting offensive cyber operations against Iranian military infrastructure. In 2019, following Iran's shoot-down of a U.S. surveillance drone, U.S. Cyber Command executed strikes against Iranian computer systems controlling rocket and missile launch systems. The Iranians planned retaliatory rocket attacks. Those systems were degraded before the attacks could be executed. Iran's generals learned something terrifying that day. The United States can reach inside their military infrastructure, the computers, the command networks, the communication systems, without a single aircraft crossing Iranian airspace. And here's the part that changes everything. Those 2019 operations were what the US was willing to confirm publicly. What remains classified is almost certainly more extensive, more deeply embedded, and more capable. Intelligence officials who've spoken on background to major publications have described Iranian military networks as extensively surveilled, meaning the US likely has persistent access to observe, and in a conflict, to degrade those networks at will. As one former NSA signals intelligence officer described it, the Iranians built walls. We built doors inside their walls years ago. They just don't know exactly where the doors are. And this is where it gets truly terrifying from Iran's perspective. Every air defense system Iran operates shares one fundamental assumption. The threat comes from above. S-300 batteries scan the sky. Bavar 373 missiles are designed to intercept aircraft and cruise missiles in the air. Iran's entire Western air defense architecture faces outward toward potential launch points in the Persian Gulf and Arabian Sea. But the United States operates a weapon that approaches from below. The U.S. Navy's Ohio-class guided missile submarines, 4 of them converted from nuclear ballistic missile submarines, each carry 154 Tomahawk cruise missiles. A single Ohio-class submarine carries more firepower than most nations' entire air forces. These submarines can operate in the Persian Gulf, the Gulf of Oman, the Arabian Sea, waters that lap against Iran's coastline, completely undetected. Iran's anti-submarine warfare capability is, according to multiple defense assessments, minimal. Iran operates 3 aging Kilo-class submarines purchased from Russia in the 1990s. They are loud, slow, and not designed for hunting U.S. nuclear submarines. To start, a Tomahawk cruise missile launched from an Ohio-class submarine travels at 550 miles per hour, hugging terrain at altitudes as low as 100 feet to avoid radar detection. Iran's radar systems are optimized for high-altitude threats. A sea-launched Tomahawk approaching at 100 feet over the desert floor is extraordinarily difficult to detect until it is already inside the terminal defense perimeter. But this alone isn't enough to explain the strategic problem. On top of that, Iran has no reliable way of knowing where those submarines are. An aircraft carrier battle group is visible. Satellite imagery tracks it. Iranian intelligence assets in regional ports report its movements. There is warning. A submarine is invisible. It can be in the Red Sea one week and the Gulf of Oman the next. Iran cannot track it, cannot target it, cannot threaten it with any weapon in their inventory. This means that at any moment, including right now, as you watch this video, there may be 154 Tomahawk missiles pointed at Iranian targets from a position Iran cannot locate, cannot engage, and cannot destroy. That is a problem with no solution in Iran's current military toolkit. Here's what I haven't told you yet, and this is the part that ties everything together. Iran knows all of this. Iranian generals are not naive. They have studied US military doctrine. They read the same think tank reports. They watched what happened to Saddam Hussein's air defenses in the first 24 hours of the 1991 Gulf War. They watched what happened to Libya's integrated air defense in 2011, dismantled in 72 hours. They built their underground network specifically because they understand what US air power can do to surface targets. The underground facilities are Iran's answer to every conventional US advantage. And for years, that answer was credible, because the bunker-busting capability didn't exist to reach the deepest Iranian facilities. But here's the problem Iran now faces. The GBU-57 massive ordnance penetrator didn't exist when Fordo was designed and built. Iranian engineers calculated the depth needed to be safe from the weapons that existed at the time. The United States then built a bomb specifically to exceed that depth, and then upgraded it specifically when the original version came up short. This is the fundamental strategic trap Iran is in. Every defensive adaptation Iran makes, Iran goes deeper underground, America builds a deeper penetrating bomb. Iran improves air defenses, America improves electronic warfare. Iran deploys more proxy forces, America develops longer-range precision weapons that don't require aircraft to enter defended airspace. The technological acceleration is moving in one direction. As a former Pentagon acquisition officer stated at a 2024 defense conference, for every wall Iran builds, we've already been working on the door for 3 years. That's not arrogance. That's the R&D budget. But wait, because what I'm about to tell you next is the part that nobody is talking about. All of the weapons and systems described so far, the B-2, the GBU-57, the Growlers, the Ohio-class submarines, the cyber operations, these are the known capabilities. The classified ones are another matter entirely. The United States has a program called the Prompt Global Strike Initiative. The concept is to deliver a conventional warhead to any target on Earth within 60 minutes of a presidential order. No aircraft, no vulnerable launch platform. A hypersonic glide vehicle launched from the continental United States that arrives over Iranian territory before any air defense system can meaningfully respond. The program has been in development since the mid-2000s. The Dark Eagle hypersonic missile, developed by the US Army, completed key testing milestones in 2024. Range, 1,700 miles. Speed, Mach 5 or greater. Flight time from launch to Iranian territory, approximately 12 minutes. Iran's current air defense systems have a reaction time of 4 to 8 minutes from radar detection to missile launch. 12 minutes of flight time, 4 to 8 minutes to react. That gap is theoretically survivable, if you see it coming on radar in time. Hypersonic glide vehicles fly at altitudes that make early detection extremely difficult. They maneuver in flight, making intercept trajectory calculations unreliable, and they travel faster than any interceptor missile in Iran's inventory can pursue. On top of that, the United States has not confirmed the full deployment status of its hypersonic strike capabilities, which means Iranian planners must assume those capabilities exist and are operational. They must plan for a threat they cannot fully characterize, traveling at a speed they cannot intercept, from a launch point they cannot target. A 2024 report from the International Institute for Strategic Studies noted that Iran's military leadership has significantly accelerated dispersal operations for high-value assets, moving equipment more frequently, changing communication patterns more regularly, behavior consistent with a military that believes it is being watched and fears a strike with minimal warning. They're not wrong to fear it. So let's bring this back to the original question. What is Iran most afraid of? not aircraft carriers sitting in the Persian Gulf. Those are visible, trackable, politically significant, but strategically limited in what they can reach. Not F-35s flying combat air patrols. They're fast and stealthy, but they have limited payload and require forward basing that Iran knows the location of. What Iran's generals fear is the combination: the invisible submarine they cannot find, the stealth bomber they cannot detect until it has already dropped its weapon, the electronic warfare aircraft that blinds their air defense network in the opening seconds, the cyber capability already sitting inside their command systems, the hypersonic weapon that arrives in 12 minutes, and the 30,000-pound bomb that was specifically designed to reach the facility they thought was unreachable. None of those things individually is what terrifies Iranian military planners. It's the fact that all of them can be used simultaneously. That in the first 90 minutes of a conflict, the United States has the capability to blind Iran's sensors, sever its command networks, destroy its leadership facilities, neutralize its nuclear infrastructure, and eliminate its long-range missile capability before a single Iranian fighter jet leaves the ground. The Iranian strategy of going underground, spreading proxy forces, and making any attack too costly, that strategy only works if the attack happens slowly enough for Iran to respond. The US has spent 25 years specifically solving that problem. As one former senior Defense Intelligence Agency analyst put it, a man who spent a decade studying Iranian military planning, the Iranians are extremely intelligent strategists. They built a very good chess game. The problem is, the United States showed up with a different game entirely, and it took them a long time to realize the board they were playing on wasn't the one we were using. Here's the question I want you to think about. If Iran understands all of this, and the evidence suggests they do, why are they still pushing forward with uranium enrichment at 60%? Why are they still funding Hezbollah? Still backing the Houthis? Still saying publicly that they are not afraid? Is it genuine confidence in their military capabilities? Or is it the only move left available to a country that knows it cannot win a direct military confrontation, and is betting everything on the idea that the political cost of starting one is too high? Drop your answer in the comments, because that question, more than any weapon system, more than any technical specification, is the one that determines whether the next chapter of this story ends quietly or in fire.